transitioned more financial into private money back in 2009, and since then, that's all we focused on. Last year, we funded over $50 million on private money. So far, since we started doing it, we've only had one foreclosure. Okay, the one foreclosure, yes, sir. And we learned a lot even from that one foreclosure, and we don't mind ever sharing our knowledge, and we're very transparent when it comes to that. We made that mistake of actually doing the same transaction with the same borrower 5 times, and we failed to check on one thing on the last property, and that's what got us in trouble. So we're going to share some of those pitfalls with you guys today, how to avoid them, whether you're an active investor or passive investor.
Yeah, there's a stark difference, you know, in things to avoid when you're the actual rehabber yourself or the lender. I know that obviously pertinent to this conference, there's the majority of us, I think, in the room at least, are active lenders. Are you guys all active lenders? Yeah? Is anyone in here a rehabber themselves? Or, I guess, a passive investor in that, or active investor in that sense? No? Awesome. A little of everything, but I would say the majority of things is to be more active in the lending side of it. So that's kind of what we wanted to make sure we focus the basis of this kind of chat with you guys on. Not things that you can really Google and look up, because frankly, you can Google and look those up, but we wanted to kind of unabashedly share our experiences with you guys on what we've been through, because Sean and I laugh, but you can read a million books on how to fly a plane. Doesn't mean you know how to fly a plane until you actually jump into one. Chances are you're going to crash as you learn how to land, but landing's what makes you a good pilot, right? No one cheers when the plane takes off. They actually cheer when it lands. So we gotta keep that in mind, right? So, you know, as active lenders and investors, when we're working with borrowers, it's great because sometimes we get mesmerized by the concepts of yield and the things that they put in front of us and the things that we look at that are very glamorous as far as the area and what the numbers could be and the potential and yada, 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 right? We spend a lot of our time doing a lot of research on how to make money, and I think we spend maybe a fraction of that time concerned with how it's actually going to get lost. And so the topic of, you know, how we wanted to discuss it today with you guys was just things to look out for and that can actually cost you. All right, we all know that there's yield to be made in real estate, whether anything more than what B of A is offering you, we're all happy as a clam. But let's just make sure we're not putting ourselves in jeopardy to lose it. Going off that kind of what Sean and I were just kind of touching on was, you know, when borrowers approach us, as a lender, we get submissions daily, all the time. Probably 5 to 10 a day that we look at. We do turn down a heck of a lot more than we accept for various reasons. I mean, number one is a track record that we'd like to have, and just kind of the way we scrutinize what we do and what we consider to be a good loan, which we'll touch on with you guys as we kind of go through. But things that they submit. Sean, why don't you talk a little bit about some of the stuff we see on the packages we get from borrowers?
Well, I think it's a misconception too. A lot of people think asset-based lenders, we're really going to only look at the property and the property only. And we don't believe in that, okay? Even though it's private money and all that stuff, we don't just look at the property, and there are different reasons for that. For us, it's borrower character is the number one thing that we'll look at, believe it or not, because when the deal goes sour, when it goes sideways, how is that individual going to be able to mitigate the situation and come through with it? And are they telling us the truth or not? So the first thing that we do is actually look at a full loan application. Not necessarily because we want to see if they can qualify, kind of like as a conventional lender would look at it, but more are they telling the truth or not, okay? The number one thing that we'll look at are bank statements, okay? So we're not looking for your tax returns, we're not looking for any of that stuff, we're looking for bank statements. The main reason for that is we actually get verification of deposit on every single borrower, every single time, okay? Just this week alone, we got 3 fraudulent bank statements, okay, from 3 different clients. One of them was $1 million rehab. The other one was, what was it?
Well,
$600,000
yeah,
rehab?
One of them was out in Orange County. One of them was in Hollywood. And you know, the thing is too, why we bring that concept up to you right now as well is times are changing in the market, and depending on what state you're active in, of course, this could be pertinent or not pertinent to you. But in California, where we're based out of, things are interesting. The market kind of adjusted, corrected. You know, people are kind of anxious, I should say, to get involved in their next deal, to have that. And a lot of people got caught in a little bit of a correction stage where they had to maybe take a hit or take a little bit of a loss to sell a property, and that obviously affected them financially, but they don't want the train to stop moving, right? So, although they may not have had as much money as they had in June, they still might want to show us that June bank statement and call it October. And that tends to happen a heck of a lot more than you would imagine.
Did you say you got a fraudulent bank statement?
3.
Yeah, 3 different individuals.
How did you know it was fraudulent?
Well, that's what we'll kind of touch on, and you'd be remarkably shocked at how good people have gotten at Adobe Photoshop.
Yeah.
Man, oh man. But we're better. So, you know, we, and again, kind of like Sean touched on in the beginning, you know, we come from a conventional background. So although we are private money lenders and we are looking at the asset itself and paying more attention to that, we grew up in the days of, you know, getting your manager to chew you out if you didn't have everything to the T, understanding how underwriting actually worked. And it's remarkable. You know, we talk about it sometimes with some of our other investors, and in other guest speaking situations that we go to where you guys are told what to ask for, but do you really know what you're looking for? You know, it's great to check the boxes off that you got the credit, you got the bank statements, you got this, but why? You know, why are you doing that? Why are you looking for that? Because if it's just a bank balance, 3 times this week we almost got fooled. So, Sean, you want to talk about how we picked it apart?
Yeah, one of them had a checking account of $584,000. Looks great on paper. Savings account of $100,000. We ended up getting a verification of deposit, and the bank account came back with $584 and $100 in the savings account. So all they did was add a few zeros right after it. Okay, and that's because it was a new borrower to us, and we always do this to any new borrower. We do a few things. We do background checks. Huge. Okay.
Are you guys familiar with LexisNexis or background checks? Yeah. You guys understand the importance of them and why they could help and benefit? Everyone gets all that?
Not really.
Sorry?
So one of the very first things and why we wanted to get a verification of deposit on this individual, because we ran a background check through LexisNexis. Background checks showed a few arrest records. Okay, a few arrest records. Now we can do a little bit more digging. Through the arrest record, we're able to go pull the court paperwork. It was Orange County. So you can go to the court online and be able to pull by the case numbers, and you're able to see the arrest records. The last arrest on that was forgery. Huge red flag for us. Okay. From there, we ended up getting the verification of deposit, came back, and that's how the bank account showed that balance. Speaking with the borrower, still, we'll give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Now I have verification of deposit in front of me. Please log into your bank account right now and tell me the balance that you have. And guess what? The balance you said is $584,000. And that's when we knew that's a fraudulent file. And she had 2 transactions that she wanted to do with us for close to about $800,000. Okay? Now we're huge about packaging the entire deal and sending it down to fraud because we want to be able to protect the industry. This is why we're all here to share the knowledge. Okay? So that was just one borrower.
And again, you know, just to touch on that, it's not that we're not asset-based lenders and that our loans aren't protected by the asset and all of that, of course, but there's also something you have to factor in called a headache factor. Why are we all really in this and what are we really doing it for, right? And that kind of can shift based on your personal strategy. We, in particular, are not a loan-to-own company, although I know a couple of guys out there that have absolutely no problem with foreclosure. In fact, enjoy it, think it's great. I hate it. I think it's a bloody nightmare. I'm not in the industry to do that, nor do I want to put my investors through that. And again, protection is there, guys. We get it. The asset. It's all, you know, fantastic. But then there's also something called opportunity cost when you're tied into a property for a year because the borrower's a nightmare and drags you through hell and back. It's not the operative goal for what we set out to do. Again, not to negate anyone else's various strategy that it may make sense for, but at least in California, I can't speak for other states. I know Texas is a joy to kick somebody out. It's easy, but California, it's a nightmare. And so we factor those things in. We want to make sure that we take those into consideration and highlight those.
And some of you guys, do you loan your own money or do you raise capital? How many of you guys raise capital out there to lend? Okay. So for us, that was key. We obviously fund with our own money, but we can't do $50 million on our own. Okay, so we have to raise capital. And it's very, very important to have a clean record when it comes to that, which is why we go to those extremes and we don't like to loan to own. Okay, it doesn't look good. We started out raising private capital about 5 years ago, $50,000. Okay, to right now we have close to about $100 million behind us. Last year funding over $50 million. And it's for the same exact reason, because we go over all the underwriting stuff. I think it's important if you're going to sit down with your investors to go over how you underwrite files, what is it that you look for, and how you're going to be able to mitigate situations if something goes wrong. So, touching on how we caught the second borrower bank statements, I think it showed a balance of what, 150,000?
Yeah.
And then on the second page, so make sure you look at all the bank statements.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people will send you the first page of the bank statement.
That
okay? That's a huge red flag. Or they tell you, you know what, I'll bring the bank statements when I come in to sign your loan docs.
Frankly, if there's any delay whatsoever in them turning over them to you, have a red flag up. Yeah, especially, you know, it's easy to, let's just call it doctor up page 1. But to make page 2 through 7 and all the debits and credits, I mean, it's pretty nuts when people go through the lengths to actually change every little debit and credit to make sure it all adds up. It's pretty remarkable. The one we got.
Except they missed one thing though.
Yeah, they missed
in the
one
notes.
Crucial factor.
In the notes, it told them how.
In the notes, it told them what their average monthly balance is. And so we're reading through 7 pages of bank statements, and we've got, I mean, this guy had transactions. 7 pages is not, that's not, you know, chump change. It takes a while. I'm sure he's probably up all night because we put massive heat on him to get it to us at 9 a.m. Sure enough, 8:59, we get the email. We're like, wow, all right, cool. Give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm flipping through. I look at page 6 of 7. And it says, you got charged a $25 surcharge fee. Reason being, your average balance for the last 90 days has been $1,100. I'm like, interesting. If you had $100,000 in there, even if you had $100,000 in there for 1 month over 90 days, it still doesn't equate to an average balance of $1,000. So when you call them on that, that's when they disappear, and it's very interesting. But again, when you ask for bank statements, one of the things you want to stress to you is look at every page. Look at the average daily balances. Pay attention to the little things. Oh, the other good one. They did a heck of a job on this one. Actually, everything was perfect. The balance, they got the change wrong. On the beginning balance of 1 month and the ending balance of the other. It was like 154,000 and like blah, 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 89 cents. And the beginning balance on the next month was 98 cents. So that, they got sloppy. But we caught it. So you just, again, pay attention to those little details because it's great to look at the numbers and get wowed and think that you want to lend on this asset, that's a no-brainer. The hard thing was the LTV on that property was really good. It really was. If it was brought to us from any other individual, we would have done that. But
and again, if they were being honest from the get-go, who would fund that deal? I'm not looking for $1 million in your bank account to fund you a deal. I'm looking for how honest are you in doing business, right? So that's the main thing. So that's why we do background checks. We also look for.
Sorry, question on that particular deal. You caught the guy out.
Yes.
Right. How do you do the deal? Just charge him more. Give him less, charge him more, make a deal.
Again, we could have done it in that way. But when we called him out and the individual disappears, again, to me, that's a sign of character. What's going to happen when they don't make their payment? Am I going to be able to talk to him about it? Is he going to be an individual who comes to me and says, hey, I got in over my head, I can't make my payment, can you guys help me? Or is he the individual who's going to leave the house tattered, torn up, contractor's got mechanics liens, he's walked away, and now all of a sudden myself and my investors have inherited a nightmare? Yes, we're protected by the asset, and we charge our points, but that can all go, frankly, that can all go to hell real quick. So that's all, you know, we worry about that.
And chances are he's going to sue you afterwards anyways.
Yeah.
That's a character play, right? So at the end of the day, he's going to sue you for wrongful foreclosure, everything else, and you're going to spend $100 grand. So even though you charge him a little bit more on points and interest rates, is it worth it?
Yeah, be very cautious about these guys. In California, this is big right now, where they're running around, getting a project somewhat done, or they run into a pickle and they tell somebody, hey, go move into the house. No lease agreement, nothing, whatever. You foreclose. Guess what? How are you going to get this person out? They're not going to walk out willfully. It's a scam. They move in. They're in there with the person in cahoots. The person says, oh, I spent 10 grand on mortgage payments. I'll tell you what, tell them you want 20 grand or you'll trash the house and get out. It's a total farce, right? But now they walk out and they're laughing all the way to the bank, theoretically. And there's not much you can do about it. So again, from a character standpoint is what we're getting at when we are, and we've been scrutinized by individual borrowers saying, hey, this is ridiculous. You guys are an asset-based lender. Why are you asking me for even bank statements? And again, it's not to sit there and put people through the ringer, you guys, about what they have and what they don't. If you don't have it, come to us and say, and we have. We've had borrowers walk right up to us and go, I have an awesome property, not $1 to my name. What can we do?
And we fund those all day.
Yeah, we put that together. It's not a problem. We have investors on our side that'll say, hey, I'll equity share with the guy. Talk to me. So we're all about that because it's a character play. I know if something goes south, you're going to come to me first instead of panicking. So those are the things you want to look for, right? Everything's good when it's good. It's how people react when it goes south that really can hurt you as an investor because you're not in it for them. Unless your strategy is different, of course, then it's a different story.
Yep. So to answer your question, yes, we do fund those kind of deals, absolutely, as long as the property makes sense. So on that kind of term, we will only go up to 75% of the future value, okay, without the repaired value, and 65. We'll even fund. Well, whenever we do the equity participation, right, we end up doing the first and the second behind it, and then we fund the transaction, and obviously our second investors are making a lot more money because they're taking a higher risk. We've been able to deliver on those projects as well. this is where we start asking for a track record. Okay, so if you don't have any money or you're fully leveraged because you have 5 properties out and you got another great deal, great, show me the track record. That track record, we're looking for how many properties have you done? Which contractors have you used? Let's call the references. So I'm not kind of just taking it at face value. Never do that.
One other thing too, when you're looking at bank statements on that, when you do ask for them as a lender, if you're private, then institution guys, I'm sure you will know, but for the private individuals out there that do it, when you are looking for it, so I'm getting one quick second. When you are
talking to the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Keep going like this.
I'm sorry about that. So when you are looking at their bank statements, make sure to also get their kind of schedule of real estate, guys. Reason being is you want to know how over-leveraged of an individual you're working with. It's great if you're writing them. See, a lot of people think, oh, if I look at their bank statements and they have an ending balance every month of $2,000 a month, and I'm writing them a loan that's $1,000 a month, we're golden. That may not necessarily be the situation. They may have just come to you for a transaction, but they may have gone to 2 or 3 other people for another one as well. So you want to make sure that from that standpoint of things, you can see that their affordability is actually there, okay? Because again, yes, you'll be protected, that's all great and dandy, but that's not the operative goal. So make sure to check on those things, not to see how many properties they own, but there's also so much more to that to see if they're over-encumbered as an individual. So make sure you're paying attention to that as well, okay?
This ties back into LexisNexis, right? Because a lot of people will still list all the properties. Some investors actually want to show off. They want to show off all the properties they have done and everything like that. And some actually don't want to show you because they know that they can't afford the next loan. So what we do is we actually double cross and reference between LexisNexis and the schedule of real estate that they send in. It actually shows all the deeds that are recorded.
What do you order in LexisNexis? Is it a product, shrink wrap product that gives you full package information?
Yeah, so LexisNexis, it's used by a lot of attorneys for background checks. If you're a lender, you can actually call them up and sign up for the fraud prevention department. Okay.
What's the product?
You actually have a minimum. So what we signed up for, I think it's a minimum that we have to pay of about $250 a month. But I'll tell you that $250 saves us a lot more money down the line.
All you can eat?
No,
Not quite. I think it's about. No, I think it's about 40 reports, and the more in-depth reports you get into, the more it costs. But yeah.
Yeah, depending on what you're pulling. But we pull pretty extensive.
Yeah.
Do you have to get a prospective borrower's sign-off in order to pull a LexisNexis report?
Yeah, absolutely. So in our application process, we actually ask for a borrower's authorization, which gives us the authority to be able to go pull any background checks and they understand that.
If a borrower wants to borrow money and he shows you the rental income, and you tell him, I want to see the bank account, he tells you he pays me cash.
Yes.
Does it mean something?
That's a good one. We hear that a lot.
So what do you
What's the answer?
Well,
There's a few different ways that we look at it. One, we got to look at lease agreements, right? From the lease agreement, let me show me an electric bill of that person's name. I mean, we get more and more in depth.
The tenant has the electric bill. But
Okay.
Another tenant wants the loan, the lender.
Sure, absolutely. But he's saying that the tenant pays him in cash, correct?
Yes.
Okay. This is where we start looking at the property itself and look at the demographics in the area. So on every property, to kind of fast forward a little bit, when we start looking at properties, we actually look at the demographics in the entire area and we do rental surveys. Because we know from the rental survey how much it's going to cost to rent a property. Okay, so if he's telling you $1,000 and we think it's $500, we're going to use the $500 on our side. That's the way we judge it, unless you can prove us otherwise.
But the guy's a crook, you like it?
the borrower himself?
Yes, because he said 1,000 and it's only worth 500.
Yeah, so in that circumstance, I mean, see, that comes down to, in all honesty, investor strategy, okay? Everyone's got a different appetite. You still may look at something and go, you know what? I really like this property. And then you start doing your assessment of risk. Everybody's got a different risk assessment breakdown, right? So if you look at it and go, okay, I'm gonna end up getting into a nightmare with this guy. It's gonna end up taking me 9 months to get this property back. Am I comfortable in my portfolio breakdown to handle that, to stomach that nightmare, to get the property back, or maybe even run the risk of this guy trashing the place? You have to go through the stages at that point. For us, again, you know, when we sit down with our investors, and we have a wide array of private investors, some of which want very simplistic breakdowns, some of which look at me and go, I have no problem doing that. Wouldn't mind it. And I do. We do have a few guys who, and again, it's against our layout of how we do things. But, you know, to each their own on that respect. I can't dictate to somebody what they want out of that that strategy. But then again, as your risk assessment would go up, maybe the interest rate you charge would go up, maybe the LTV would come down. Anything you can do to hedge what you might be going up against. Because cash deposits and things like that, that's a tough one. What do you do in that circumstance? But what Sean was touching on is, at least, at the very least, when they tell you it's a cash deposit, make sure it adds up. When they're telling you something that could just be complete nonsense, at least your red flag should go up at that point.
Rent receipt from the tenant.
I'm sorry?
Receipt from the
Yeah, you could ask for receipts, things like that. But, to answer your question on that respect, when you're dealing in private money, you're going to have those situations where the guy just may be a crook. So.
Again, we look at the rental survey in the market, see what it rents for, does it service the loan that we're going to give out on it? That's one of the key parameters that we look for whenever we're lending.
Do you guys do demographic background checks or rental surveys when you're looking at possibly making a loan to somebody or in an area?
Whether it's a fix and flip or not. So even though a lot of the loans that we do are fix and flip, we still do rental surveys. And it's very, very important because if you were to take over that property for whatever reason, the market switches, you've got to be able to rent it out. And we all know that rents are going up.
And it's not just even rents, when you start breaking down demographics, you guys, like, for example, fix and flip type properties, okay? I'll give you an example of a client that we had. They did an amazing, amazing job on this property. I mean, the property was absolutely gorgeous, and it's been sitting on the market now for 6 months. Reason being is they didn't really check their demographics when they decided midway through the project to just all of a sudden spend $40,000 more than they should have. Well off the rehab bid, they called us and said, we're going to do this. And we said to them, I don't know that you might want to do that. No. I talked to my realtor, we're doing this. Well, Godspeed, okay? They went ahead and they, as you guys I'm sure have heard the term coined, over-improved for the area, right? Difference is this, they built what would, in all honesty, be well over $1 million property in a $700,000 neighborhood, okay? Now the difference is this. As we all know, especially in LA, ego's huge. Okay? No one wants to drop $1 million to not live around $1 million neighbors. Just not going to happen. So when they see the sticker, they see the house, if you blindfold them and walk them through the house, they're in love. They walk outside and, I don't know, there's not a Bentley in every driveway, all of a sudden they don't want to be there. And it just goes that way. Now whether you miss that or not, they could have done a quick demographic check on the average medium income of every household within a square mile radius of that place. To look at that and go, you know what, I don't think that's going to fly, just because of the type of person that's going to want to live on this street or in this area. You as an investor probably wouldn't even think to that, because you're looking at the appraisal and you're looking at comps, which we'll touch on in a second. That's such a skewed word nowadays. But you're looking at those things and you're going, I should be okay. They know what they're doing, I should be fine. Oh, the realtor feels confident. I have a lot of friends that are realtors, but the realtors are usually the first ones that look at you and go, I think we got a price drop. The market's not reacting.
So what, they price drop to $50,000 every week after that?
Oh yeah, and then, that's a whole nother situation where, yeah, we'll touch on that in a minute because I don't want to deviate too much from this one. But yeah, pay attention to the demographics, you guys, not simply because you're trying to scrutinize an individual or pick apart something about a neighborhood or whatever, but you just want to see if your actual asset protection or value you're looking to get to is even attainable, okay, by the type of people that buy in that area. What type of jobs are in the market? You're judging future growth down the way. Okay, well, certain pockets may have been really deserted or hit hard. But then you're talking about companies like, for example, out in the Inland Empire, Amazon just built an enormous facility out there that if you weren't paying attention, oddly enough, you probably wouldn't have caught that because it's in a totally different sector, right? It's a commercial sector. But what they're going to do is create 20,000 jobs and build this whole just-in-time delivery service so they can do same-day deliveries within a given area. Well, that's enormous. You've got job creation that's pretty stable by a juggernaut company. Okay, great. So if people are going to go out there, that's going to create a little bit of demand in a certain pocket to buy. So pay attention to those sort of things because that can benefit you, right? Or if a company's shutting down a facility that you're not otherwise aware of, that can obviously hurt you immeasurably. So watch those demographics of job creation. Yes, sir?
Well, it's easy to see why the data would give us stronger analytical tools. But if you're a small individual lender and you can't afford $250, don't want to spend $250 subscription fees to Nexus Lexus, are there alternatives?
I would say the first alternative I would recommend to all of you guys is call a local realtor. That's the first thing. Those guys are in tune with the market, and it's free. They'll talk to you.
Well, LexisNexis is just for background checks. So it doesn't give you demographics.
It's one of the things you mentioned, that just looking for either a reseller of that information where you can do one-off every other month kind of thing,
Yeah, absolutely. There's actually a few. I'm sure if you Google fraud prevention, there's actually a few companies that will do that. Another way, let's say you get a schedule of real estate, or they did a few properties, and they had private lenders before. I always give verification of deposit, verification of mortgage, right? They make their payments on time. Believe it or not, our main lenders, we all work together in California in a way. Why? Because we're trying to do fraud prevention. It actually just happened to us yesterday. We got a call, but the same borrower that did that fraud, they went, left us, applied somewhere else. They called us because we have a good relationship, and usually we end up getting the same submissions, and we told them exactly what's going on, and it happened. So if they already have any kind of deal with a private lender, give them a call and ask them. Ask them about that relationship that they had with the borrower, and you'd be surprised what they're going to share with you.
And then also on the demographic side, literally Redfin gives it to you for free. If you just go to Redfin, type in the property address, down on the far right corner, it will say full, I think it says like full demographic analytics or something like that. You click it and it's great. I mean, it really breaks it down really beautifully. It gives you rental surveys, it gives you jobs, it gives you what the average home sales have been, average days on market for listings and whatnot. It's actually really nice. Definitely check it out.
Yep.
What's the name of that?
That's just Redfin, www.redfin.in.
Oh, Redfin.
Yep. Yes.
Just a suggestion, when we do, I live in Arizona, we have an email list, and we just send out, stay away from.
Oh, you mean like other lenders and things like
Yeah,
that?
we just have a huge, 20 guys on it.
Yeah.
Let's open up as a discussion, you guys. This is the whole point. So you were saying?
Oh, I was just saying,
It's not on.
Is that on? All right. Well,
anyways, in Arizona, there's about 20 of us lenders that have an ongoing email list of just stay away from this guy. So
yeah.
it's.
Yeah, that's usually where, places like, I mean, Apple's done an amazing job doing that, pulling everybody together. CMA is another place that's done that, where we all kind of get the opportunity and everyone drops the egos and the guard, and we get to talk and just have a drink and share stories, right? It's all about the war stories of what's going on, because you can Google everything else, but that's kind of what we wanted to share with you guys today too, is things we've been through, things we've seen.
I always just send that guy to my arch rival.
that works too, right? Different strategies. Al, you had a question?
I'm kind of like this gentleman over here. I've only got Zillow and Redfin. Is there anything else that I would get off of a normal computer in my home office that I should look at?
Honestly, you'd be so shocked at what you guys can uncover with asking for a verification mortgage and speaking to the previous private lender. I would say definitely check Redfin, and then always, 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 I can't stress this enough, literally call 1 or 2 different realtors in the area of that property, okay? Don't take what they're telling you at face value. I've gotten into so many arguments with realtors, you guys, it's ridiculous. I'm serious, because half the time they'll tell me that we're ridiculous and they're gonna sell the house for X amount more than what it is. And my answer to them is, I'll tell you what, take the difference of what you think and what I think and put it in an escrow account. And if at the end the property sells, take your money back. If not, you give it to the borrower. Story changes it. Okay.
What if it's a high-end flip? How do you address that?
High-end flips are kind of a whole other situation. How active are you guys here in high-end flips? Anybody? Okay, so there are a few of you guys in the room that are active in high-end flips. That comes down, and that kind of goes right into our next one of the contractor, right? Because it's very, very difficult to comp a high-end flip. They tend to be spec homes. They tend to be not something that's comparable, right? That's the point of a high-end flip, is that there's not something that's identically comparable. It's not a track by any means or anything of that nature. So, Sean, why don't you talk a little bit about what we do on those? We go through a little bit of a procedure with those.
Well, I think on any property we go through the same steps. Obviously, on the high-end stuff, we give it a little bit more detail. But any property, first thing we do is we'll always do virtual drive-bys. Okay, we don't want to waste our time driving to the property when they first submit it. So we do virtual drive-bys. You can do that using Google Earth. Everybody know about Google Earth and how it works? You can literally walk the street from your house. Second, that after we do start comping properties on our side to come up with our own value. Again, this is where Redfin, so if you don't have MLS access, us big brokers and realtors, we actually have access to MLS as well. But if you don't, use Redfin, you'll be able to comp the property. There's an estimator at the end of the page, and you can pick the properties that kind of matches the property that you're going to flip, and it'll give you an estimate, okay? So we end up comping the property, looking at the demographics. After that, we go and we get an appraisal. So all the deals, and again, we're asset-based, but I would probably say 95% of the deals that we do, we actually get an appraisal on it, okay? Reason being, it protects us. There's a third party going out there and give their opinion of value. Our appraiser has been in business for over 20 years, so we trust the value that he gives us. And he's bid that on, we actually kind of measure it. every quarter has been on or off.
Do you guys pay for the appraisals or does the borrower
The borrower pays for the appraisal. Typically, on a regular SFR, it's about 350 to 400. Okay, and for us, it shows how serious the borrower is. Okay, so is he shopping with 20 other lenders, or is he really working with us? So at that point, they meet at the property, they deal with it, he pays the appraiser directly, and we go from there.
And just as well as how a borrower kind of develops their team, right? They've got contractors and whatever under their belt of guys that they go in with and flip the properties. You as a lender or a private investor should as well. Interview contractors yourself, somebody that you trust. Find somebody whose opinion you respect. Start interviewing appraisers, okay? Talk to them, look at their track record, their history, how long they've been in business, because you need to, at the end of the day, it's like you said, there's an appraiser for a reason. We're not licensed appraisers. We trust their value, but you've got to gain that trust. You've got to earn it with them over time. And you know that they really do have your best interests at heart. So start interviewing a few. Call around. There's, they're obviously everywhere, but pick a few of them apart. Or call for references of ones that maybe other lenders have worked with that you can actually count on, so that when you get a submission or when a client sends something to you, you can call them and ask the appraiser their opinion real quick.
It is
that you can value.
Yeah, but it's also very important. Not every appraiser can appraise on future value. So you got to make sure that they understand how to appraise based on the future value, by also taking a look at the rehab bid. So we take that into consideration when we're trying to appraise for the future value. Are you really going to put granite into that house in order to be able to get that value, or are you just going to end up doing the basic stuff? You're not going to get that future value if you don't.
Yeah, and the rehab bid is kind of what ties in directly to your question about high-end flips and what to do about comping them. It's really the contractor in the rehab bid that's really going to set aside that high-end flip to see if it makes sense. How many of you guys have when comping a property, again, we talked about how it's hard to comp a high-end property, but when you do, let's say, put it into Redfin, I'm just going to use that as an example because it's free and everyone has access to it. At the bottom, you'll see properties that say similar for sale or similar that I've sold. How many of you guys actually have looked through the pictures of those to see? You can get a virtual walkthrough of the comps that have sold without having to go through that property or whatever, but what you're looking for there is the fit and finish, right? The colors. Colors kind of tie into demographic, by the way. You don't want to go into the Hollywood Hills and paint your house pink. But if you go down on 55th Avenue, that might just work perfectly because of the demographic, right? So you have to play that in consideration. So look through at the fit and finish, the colors, the layouts, how those properties flow is a big one, especially in that arena of things and the type of individual that's buying them. If it's a very modern area and everyone's going with that West LA modern look, you don't want to necessarily go with a Victorian house. It may not fit, although you may have spent $300,000 on the remodel. It's irrelevant.
And we learned this because the rehab bid doesn't explain it all. So we actually get a statement from them of how are they going to improve their property. We actually want to be able to visualize it through their statement. So we actually ask.
Yeah, ask a borrower to paint their vision for you.
Yeah.
Because when they're gonna be excited, right? They're gonna be emotional about something. When they come to you, and we tell this to borrowers too, is that understand when you're working with a private lender, you need to bring them into your head, right? Because we're not gonna get it. We're looking at numbers. We're looking at raw data, numbers, ROIs, risk assessment, yada yada. But we have to also, on the high end side, it really is understanding the project, okay? So a lot of times what we'll advise borrowers to do is, hey, get your stager involved too. Bring your stager to me. I am not a stager. I'm horrible with design. I don't have the eye. I can't walk into a house and say it should look like this. Many, many times I've been wrong. I've walked into properties and went, this is going to be horrible. And at the end I walked out going, oh my God, I would totally love to buy this place because I just don't have that vision. 9 out of 10 buyers don't have that vision. Okay, so make sure that you get yourself involved with what they're doing because at the end of the day, it's your money. So you need to know what they're painting, that picture, and then when you go back and do your research, look at it and go, wait, the picture that they painted to me right now, does that even make sense to what's going on in this given area? And if it doesn't, bring it up to them, okay? Because they're not going to bring it up to you. They're excited and they're emotional.
Now,
how much profit on sale do you expect at the sellout price? How much profit on sale do you expect for a property selling for, say, $425,000 versus one selling for $2 million?
How much profit for sale?
Profit on sale.
So you're saying what's the difference or our expectations on somebody selling a $2 million property or somebody selling a $400,000?
One's going to sell for $425,000, one's going to sell for $2 million. What?
Honestly, at the end of the day, I think it's just percentages. So the way we look at it, we look at least
minimum percentage.
20%. We look at 20% minimum. Not full profit. We're looking for 20% minimum protected equity on the future value. Reason being is 10% of it is going to go away into your sales commissions, holding costs, selling costs, all the junk fees, and then if anything was to change in the market, at least you have 10% protection, and hopefully you'll get the 10% profit as long as the market does not change without falling.
Net out all the sales costs.
Exactly, net.
Yep. So net, we're looking for 10.
20% profit on sales, so it'd be $80,000 on $20,000.
That'd be, no, it would be, once everything's taken into consideration. So what you're asking is kind of what's our matrix look like on how we break stuff down. When we put our numbers in, we've kind of created a very simplistic ROI calculator, if you will, that works out great. We'll put in what the ARV is, purchase price, and what the rehab costs are. And we just enter in how many months of holding costs we anticipate the property to be. So when we're analyzing a deal, we put those 5 little figures in there, and it comes out with an X amount of net percentage on the transaction. What we like to see is at least 10%, right? If they're in excess of 90% of the ARV when all's said and done, it's probably a pickle of a situation because you're on a very tight margin of error. Do all of you guys here ask your clients to break down their numbers for you when they bring a deal to you to see how they're coming to their ROI? Or if they've even calculated ROI, or if they're just looking at dollar amount, which some people just fixate on dollar amount and don't pay attention to ROI? If not, you should, because it's extremely important to see all the things they're missing. You have no idea how many times Sean and I get hit with a transaction where somebody says, I think this is a brilliant deal, I'm going to make $20,000 on this transaction, and I'm all for it. We put it in our calculator, and they're going to lose $1,100 bucks. And they can't understand why. It's because they didn't factor in for agent, I mean, literally, people don't factor in for agent commissions, which is shocking. Agent commissions, escrow fees, hazard insurance. They didn't know that they had to pay property taxes, and oh, by the way, in this market, property taxes are $7 grand. So yeah, you're going to have to pay that if you didn't think about it.
Or if the property had back new taxes too.
A lot of times people miss that.
Don't see it.
So those are things that are huge because again, that kind of tells you a little bit about where the borrower's at, right? To me, if a borrower comes to me and they want to flip $1 million property, and you didn't anticipate for agent commissions, I don't know that you should be flipping $1 million property. Right? I know that sounds kind of crude, but it is what it is, right? At some point, as a lender, as an investor, you're going to look at the situation and go, do I have faith in this person? Because at the end of the day, guys, yes, we're protected by the asset, but the point that we're trying to drive home is we're lending to the person. So pick it apart. Find out how their brain works. You know, are they on the same level as you? Are they thinking within the caliber of realm that they're flipping?
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. To go in greater depth, though, just for time's sake here, high-end properties, how do we even make sure that the rehab bid matches, appraisal matches? We're not contractors, right? And but here's what we do. We hold back all the rehab funds and we release them based on the job that they complete so far. We send that inspector out to make sure that the rehab bid that they have is going to equate to the finish that they said they're going to do, that matches the appraisal that's going to happen. Our inspector, the one that we have, is a general contractor, and he flipped properties before. So it's very, very easy for him to be able to walk through the property and verify that value. So again, that goes back to picking your team and picking it very, very well.
And just to give you a tip, because some people have asked us, well, that's great to know that you have a GC that's done that, but how do we find one? Number one, you can always call us if you're in California or LA in particular. We're happy to recommend our guy. If not, literally what we did, and it was time consuming, but we typed into Google FHA home inspectors. Okay, and you just start going through the list. It's time consuming, but it's important, it's imperative. So we spend a lot of time literally just doing phone interviews with these people, asking them how they've been involved, are they a GC, have they ever flipped, do they understand what we're looking for, and we wrote down what we're looking for. So after 45 different conversations of redundancy, we finally found somebody that was an ex-flipper, that was local to the area, that knew what they were talking about, and they came into our office and sat down with us, and this was the kicker for us, is they had already had a binder portfolio of everything they've done and a sample inspection report. To me, that exudes a very high level of professionalism. It spoke volumes to me. Those are the things we're looking for, but you can Google those things. So it's not that you have to spend money to find a directory, it's just time consuming and it's a nuisance, but it's imperative. Yes?
I believe that on construction loans currently for private money, you have to hire a particular company to do the inspections, but not on rehab loans then?
If it's $100,000 or more, you'd have to use something, I'm just using an example like BuildZig, for example. But for rehab inspections, you want to use someone who's a GC because look, you're going to have somebody go inspect work, but if they've never done the work themselves, how do they know if it's right? Because if they're just going to go in and snap some pictures, well, the client said they laid tile on the floor. Sweet, I went in and the tile was there, here's a picture of it. Looks great on the picture. You walk the property and tiles are all uneven. Which, by the way, we've had that happen one time, and that was a hell of a lesson that we learned about don't ever trust pictures. We had some pictures that looked amazing. And when we went to walk the property, my God, I
It was listed on MLS too.
Oh, the
It was
MLS
listed,
pictures were
it was
amazing.
ready, final rehab, it was a final rehab draw that they wanted. It looked great, and they wanted us to use it going, hey, it's listed on MLS, I just finished the entire project, I just need the rest of my money.
So yeah, call and get a contractor that you respect and trust. And yes, it does cost money right up front. You may shell out $200 to have them go out. It's $200 to safeguard you. Again, when you're investing, guys, it's a business. You have to look at it that way to protect yourself. It's worth it, in our opinion. On a high end, you know, if somebody makes a mistake on a $100,000, $200,000 property, the days on market are different. The demographic of buyer is different. You make a mistake on a $1 million property, the people that are going to spend $1 million on a house are not going to tolerate it, right? They're just not going to go for it. And probably the cost of the materials that you used were not cheap. So to have a contractor come back in, break it all apart, redo it, the cost becomes exponential, okay? So with those in particular, pay the inspector to go check it out, walk the rehab bid, make sure it even makes sense.
And the final inspection, by the way, here's a kicker that we give back to our clients. The final inspection is a full inspection. Typically, whenever you go buy a house, you get an inspection on the house, right? So since our inspector is fully licensed, we actually do a final inspection already. So as a seller, you already have it with you. So when the buyer comes your way, there's a full inspection. You're more than welcome to hire your own, but there's a full process of all the inspections. Here's all the pictures. Here's the entire work that got done on the property, and here's a final gift for you. Okay, so then they'll be more proactive as well, and that's
a hell of a selling tool. You'd be shocked at how many end buyers are, you know, almost deter from a flip property because they go, I don't know what's behind the drywall, right? It was that whole lipstick on a pig concept that people tried to do. And when you actually show them a report of what's behind the drywall, it's amazing. People's reactions is very, very positive, and it's good for you too. You know, it's good to know what's going on with the project.
I'm sorry, I know you had a few questions, but
Where do you guys do to market your business? How do you find your borrowers?
That's a secret.
Give us all your secrets.
No, I'm kidding. Sean's actually the brainchild of our marketing side, so I'll let him go with that one.
Honestly, I think right now a lot of it is word of mouth. We build a really good reputation out there, and when we narrow down our borrowers and we want to work with some of the best out there, only the best works with the best, right? So these borrowers usually work with other rehabbers on different flips, and the word of mouth. I mean, at the end of the day, everything that we do here and everything we're talking about, we'll still fund under 7 days. Okay, and some of our borrowers will fund it in 3 days. So our team is very, very efficient. We just hired the right team to be able to do that.
How big is your team?
Right now we're up to 10? 11?
Sam,
Right, but we have a few independent agents outside, but in our office we're a total of 10, including we have our own in-house marketing department, so our marketing department is huge. Carl's our marketing manager, so don't pick his brains afterwards, guys, okay?
I'll give you a tip marketing doesn't want me to give you.
Yeah.
All right, I'll give you a tip. All right, so think about this, right? Market's getting tighter. Our contractors still working. They are, right? They've got to keep going. The borrowers that maybe have been squeezed out, why did they get squeezed out? Margins are tighter, okay? Contractors still need to keep working, yet the borrower's gone away because margins are tighter. Who then becomes the new borrower? The contractor themselves, okay? There are online associations you can literally Google of local contractor gatherings and associations. Show up. Tell them what you do, okay?
We're huge at networking.
Yeah, but network efficiently. People network to network all the time, but they're not thinking about why they're doing it. The why factor behind what we do sometimes gets, I think, lost so much. But really pay attention to who you want to target as a borrower. It's amazing how insanely efficient the internet has made everything, finding what you want. And there's associations for everything. There's meetup groups for contractors that you could just go and attend, become a sponsor of it. It's nothing. But become a part of their world if you want to actually be involved with them on it, and you'd be shocked because you'll need to shake a few hands and it'll take a little bit of time, but you're going to get involved in the right segment. And at that point, once you're into the contractors, that's who you want to be with, right? At the end of it. Yes, sir.
Approximately, you said you have about 10 people. How much a year would you typically loan at what average loan size?
Our average loan amount is about $325,000.
And that is, I would say it's county dependent though too in California. Are you guys from California?
I am.
Oh, okay, cool. So it just depends on what, you know, what county you're in, but yeah, I guess across the board.
It's about $325,000 average, just because we have a huge rehabbing team, for example, that does a lot between the $100,000 and $150,000 range. That's their target. But you know what? They do about 8 to 10 properties a month. It's okay. They're doing the volume play.
How much a year?
Sorry, guys. Let me just finish this one real quick. I'm sorry. What was that?
How much a year do you typically loan out?
Well, we'd like to stay above 50 million. And if we can double that going into next year, that's the game plan. But we just need to make sure that our exposure is right with the right people. Lending money, guys, is the easy part. That's very, very easy. It's lending money to the right people. That's the hard part. And I'll give you a very crude statement I like throwing out there, and I hope it doesn't offend anybody, but there is an ass for every seed. Sometimes we're not the seed.
What's the name of your company?
It's MOR Financial.
And I'm sorry, sir, you had
You have a lot of loans, 350,000 divided by $50 million, that's a lot of loans.
Thank you.
10 people to work on it. So.
Yes,
Yes,
we
sir.
actually service in-house as well. So our servicing department is in-house as well. We don't service outside.
10 people manage that much.
We have a very, very efficient team. But again, it just comes down to systems. If you have the systems in place and you have the bullet points that go, you can operate. We're not even close to capacity. I'm so sorry, sir. He had his hand up.
If everybody pays, 10 people is too much.
I'm sorry?
If everybody pays in time, 10 people is too much.
All right.
You're right.
Business advice.
Yes, sir.
So the thing I've noticed is going to those groups and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Usually those are the people that, oh yeah, I'm gonna do some flips. I'm gonna do
Absolutely.
some flips, but they never do anything.
You're right.
Do you, I mean, I've pretty much given up on those because the people that do, and the people that don't go to those groups. So,
Well, I
have
will
you
tell
had
you.
success?
I will tell
I'm
you.
in Arizona, so I'm not gonna steal anything.
No. That's not a problem. We wouldn't mind it, in any way. Again,
It's the same thing in California, I'll
it's
tell
the
you
same
that.
thing.
Yeah.
It's the 80-20 rule. Listen, you're going to show up into that room, investment clubs, right? That's what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
I would say 20% or less are actually doing deals. 80% of them are actually talking about doing deals. And we have been...
We've still had success, by the way, to answer your question
Yes.
directly. Yes, we have. We've had some really great people. Has it taken a lot of time to filter through? Yes. But what it comes down to as well, guys, is exposure. And
Consistency as well.
the thing is, a lot of people go to these networking groups and whatnot looking for something. What I would advise you to do is don't go looking for anything. Go as the conduit. Go as the connector. You'd be amazingly astonished how empowering it is to be the person that knows a person they need. Because a lot of these people are scared. They've gone to, a course or something of the nature, and it's very, again, you may know how to swim. It doesn't mean you're going to go cliff jumping. It's different. So they've learned how to swim, but jumping off the cliff is a little scary. But you just want to, in some way, be able to be a staple there. Once you kind of become a staple and somebody they can count on, you'd be shocked when someone's ready to take that leap, how they're willing to go with you. And all you need is one, because once that happens, the word of mouth is sensational. But it's exhausting to have those conversations, and you just kind of have to. You just kind of have to do it. I don't know what to tell you on that.
Yeah, I think we've been involved in the same investment clubs now for years, and that's one way to know, right? Once you start seeing the same people, the same faces, you get to know who's actually doing deals and who's not. And as a lender as well, a lot of lenders show up to these investment clubs as well, and you will know which ones are actually funding deals, which ones are not, and that's it. You just got to go through that and just be consistent. That's the main thing, is going to the same clubs, going to the same stuff. A lot of people make the mistake of, I'm going to go to this club one time, jump up to this investment club, jump around. You're not going to get to know anybody. Nobody's going to get to know you, and all you're doing is just passing your cards around, and you're going to give up.
Sponsor one. When you get to know the people that run it, they're going to tell you who the people are that are actually doing business. And usually that takes some sponsorship form of some sort.
But it's worth all relationship based, right? So they will know who's in their club is actually doing business and who isn't. All right, so now we kind of went off topic a little bit. Did you have any more questions on your side, or?
Seriously, you guys said sometimes if someone doesn't have any money, you can still work it out. How do you do it? Do you do like a joint venture, or do you debt funders? How does that work?
Yeah, if the asset makes sense and they're forthright with us and telling us, of their situation, sure. Again, we're asset-based lenders, right? So if it makes sense, we can go in and we can underwrite the property for the property's sake. And if they're going to come in, then, there are other precautions we take. Like, number one, if somebody's going to come in with no money whatsoever, to be quite honest, I'm not a fan of them using a contractor of their choice. Why should? At that point, they should be using a contractor of our choice, because if the proverbial crap hits the fan, I got to know how it's going to get handled. I'm not going to trust somebody on their side that may do something wrong. So, again, that's very important for you to have a team, right? You got to go to your go-to. And you're right, it's asset-based, you can charge a little more, you can do something of that type, but make sure you're covered, that's it, just make sure you're covered. And yes, if an investor out there is willing to do an equity participation, which a lot are, they're open to that. You just want to make sure that you've got it laid out well, because whether you're representing your investors or you're an investor yourself, if you're representing your investors, we all know the egg is going to be on your face if something goes south. They're going to look to you, regardless of how aggressive they feel in that moment or whatever it may be. Yield is great. Everything's good when it's good. It's how you handle it when it's bad.
So yeah, to answer your question, we'll always do it first and then a second behind it, whether that second at a high interest rate or as an equity participation. Okay, so it becomes contingent interest. We want to stay away from the joint venture, and you should really look into those laws, review with an attorney. There's a huge difference between a joint venture and contingent interest riding on your second note. Be very, very careful when it comes to that. We don't want to do it here. If you guys want to, just stop by. We're right outside on the booth, and we'd love to talk to you some more about that.
But thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. We're here to just have an open discussion with everybody when it comes to that.
Yes, sir.
Explain that thing with that part of the contingent interest in the second. Why do you do it? When do you do it?
That's more of there's a legal backing behind why you do a contingent interest over a joint venture.
I will tell you one thing though, that you should review with an attorney for that reason, is the fiduciary duty between a joint venture and contingent interest. Whenever you do a joint venture, now you're a partner with them. When you're a partner, you owe fiduciary duty that goes beyond you being just a lender. So that's why we want to review it and have the right paperwork behind it.
And most importantly, don't ever draft your own documents. Please don't ever draft your own documents. We've seen people try that, even though they're very, very eloquently written. Don't draft your own documents. Just go to an attorney.
Do you find a conflict between if you're doing both the first and the second? It's not the same money behind both of them.
You mean two different investors, one on the first TD, one on the second?
Yeah.
Do we find a conflict?
Do you do that? And if you do, isn't there a conflict of interest potentially down the road?
No, as long as you disclose. As long as you disclose to the first investor what's happening on carrying on the second note. And typically, we will never do a second behind the first that we do not know. And because we can also control the first, and there's always that relationship between the first and the second to make sure that if anything goes wrong, we're going to mitigate that situation and make sure that it gets done the correct way.
Yeah, you never want to see one of your investors.
It's all about disclosing, right? In our business, as long as you disclose, it should be fine.
Sorry, yes, sir.
Are you seeing South California market softening? In other words, your 6 months gold comps are no longer what the properties can sell for today. Specifically, LA, San Diego, these two markets seem to be the deadline per se. I just want to hear your opinions when you were underwriting this file.
Sure.
Taking an appraisal comps over the last 6 months, something very recent.
Right.
Does
it make it difficult, you're saying, to comment on these markets?
You're absolutely right about that, yeah. So we don't ever want to take the greater push on the market or anything like that. So even though, let's say we do get a property appraised, and we don't agree with the value, we'll go with the value, we'll cut that appraisal. So we'll review it and we'll cut it ourselves if we don't believe in that.
Yeah.
Just because the appraiser said that's the value, at the end of the day, we assess the risk tolerance behind it. And LA has been flat now for about 4 months or so. And we do believe that's going to stay flat until they start changing some of the lending guidelines. And we do believe lending guidelines are going to change. And when that happens, prices are going to continue to go up.
The new Fannie and Freddie loosening up underwriting, that's what you think is going to drive the market?
It's a whole different concept or discussion, but yes, they just appointed somebody that is going to open up lending. He's had history of doing that in the past with Freddie. So I'm sure you're aware with Freddie and Fannie, and chances are it's going to happen. The cycle of real estate, we see it every 7 to 10 years. We still believe that there's going to be another run for about 2 to 3 more years behind it.
One thing I want to just touch on real quick with comps. Again, because of certain pockets in the timing, that's why I think it's always important to call local realtors. Because you can't, like for example in LA, you can't take a comp from June, right? You just can't do it. June happened to be hot. August happened to be a nightmare, right? So those things are going to vary. Now, the August comps may have been skewed because in LA what happened with a lot of these properties is people maybe have overspent and then they throw it on the market, right? They'll list it and the days on market is 4 and the price drops are 7 because they're just in a panic situation that they didn't have a full price offer within 20 seconds of putting it on the list. That happens a lot, okay? At that point, they've already slit their wrist, they're in the Shark Tank. And if they're a buyer, buyers sniff it out like that, Okay, they can see when they're looking at the picture of a fully beautifully rehabbed house, price dropped 4 times in 5 days. What do you think is going to happen? They're going to come in and give you a full price offer? No way. They're going to let you bleed out. So you have to be very cautious of that. And so the comps can get skewed. It doesn't necessarily, in our opinion, indicate the actual accurate value of the house. Maybe just what we call a grenaded listing is kind of how we refer to it as, where a realtor doesn't know what the heck they're doing and they come and overlist the property based on comps from June. So pay attention to what's happening in that market. And when you actually look at comps, look at really what the market's doing.
And going off Redfin, right? So Redfin wants you to shoot a chart, price per square foot, listing versus sales. And so, again, when you're comping a property and it was comped at the peak of the price per square foot, you don't want to take that comp.
Price per square foot doesn't work. 90% of the times, just being these very nervous, I've seen all kinds of mistakes. The house is built correctly, it's got the square footage. Functional, dysfunctional.
Yes.
Right.
Humongous risk, especially high-end properties.
And again, you know, especially with high-end areas, when we speak to a local realtor, guys, they know what's on the market, and they probably know that house. So call a couple different realtors, really, because that's going to make or break the difference. You know, some of these guys, when they know they're not buying for your listing, they're really not going to blow smoke to you about what they think they can sell the property for. They're going to tell you flat out, listen, I don't think it's going to work. Like one of the ones we called on, we called a local Sotheby's realtor in Beverly Hills about a property, and this was, again, we trust our appraiser, we trust everything, but it's their opinions, right? So we called 4 different realtors, and their thing was, hey, listen, man, I know that house. I've shown that house 11 times. You know what the problem is? And we said, what's the problem? The pool is shaped like a triangle. So what are you talking about? He goes, yeah, the pool's shaped like a triangle. Did you see it, or are you looking at the MLS pictures? I said, no, I'm looking at the MLS pictures. He goes, yeah, the guy that took that picture took a very strategic picture that cuts off a quarter of the pool and makes it look like a rectangle. It's not like that. Because when you walk it, it's a triangle. People hate it. I said, Jesus, I didn't even think about that, because it's not going to sell. Right?
What are you doing for the realtors that you use as resources to make the money continue to make your call? What's it?
Well, I mean, we send them edible arrangements and little gift cards and things like that. But no, in all, you know, levity aside, for us, being a lending network that we are, when they give us something of value, we're going to market them. I'm going to return that favor, because when a borrower calls me again and says, hey, do you know a good realtor in the Highland Park area? Yeah, actually I do, because this guy with nothing in it to gain for him was dead honest with me. So now I'm going to put you out to everybody that's going to ask me about you. Sure, I'm going to return that favor. Yes, you know, little signs of appreciation are great, but you'd be shocked, again, you'd be shocked how many realtors are sitting at their desk with nothing to do sometimes. So having a conversation about a property is like the highlight of their day. They wouldn't mind it.
So again, it comes down to be the conduit, right? We're connectors. So when we go out to network, we're really trying to go out with a mission. What are we going to give you? What are you going to give us? And how does it benefit everybody involved? And even though it does not mean cash value right now, it means a relationship that gets built over time. And that's how we're able to get into some of the bigger offices out in Beverly Hills for that reason. All right.
So yeah, I think we're out of time.
I think we have 1 more minute. So we want to thank you guys. If you have any more questions, please let us know.